Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Early Childhood Social Studies Methods for this week. We're covering Chapter 2 today, which is this right here, planning activities, social studies activities with young children, how that might look, well, some strategies, some thoughts, some process, some planning, how that goes into that. So I'm going to cover that today here briefly. Then you're going to have the Chapter 2 quiz that is due next Thursday. And also this Bloom's taxonomy assignment is going to be due next Thursday. I'll talk about that after we are done with, after I'm done talking about the chapter, because they are definitely linked together. We'll talk about Bloom's taxonomy so that you understand it a little bit more, and then talk about the assignment. And so hopefully that makes a little bit more sense for you with that. Okay. Today is Thursday, January 26th. So looking for Chapter 1 quiz to be completed and the theories assignment as well. Just upload those when you are completed, and I will grade them as soon as I can. Okay, if you have questions on anything, as always, please reach out and let me know. I'm more than happy to help you answer questions, give you extensions, etc., whatever it might be. Okay, but please reach out to me and communicate. All right, so Chapter 2, planning social studies activities with young children. What does that look like? All right, so the first part, planning, is of course the first thing that we've got to do in regards to getting things ready for any age level, any class level, any content, any subject. Here we will always talk about developmentally appropriate, right? I continue to stress that and talk about that. Developmentally appropriate curriculum, what that includes, what that looks like. Right. So first thing we have to talk about and think about is, recognizing what children should know, understand, and be able to do physically, socially, emotionally, cognitively. So with our young children, and really with anyone we're teaching, we should think about and recognize, number one, understand our students, and number two, be able to take what we know about our students and plan and use that in our planning component. Okay, so important that we recognize what kids are able to do in a variety of domains. We'll talk about those domains again here in a minute, that I think we've talked about before in other classes, not in this class this semester yet. But so we have to recognize what kids can do. We align what we're going to do with our state standards if we have them or use them, district program standards, early learning standards for those of you that would be in pre-K and below, and then you would have your state standards for those of you that would work in kindergarten and above, okay, in terms of aligning that. We want to make sure we have defined goals if it's for our daily or weekly lesson plans, or if it's for our overall, like what is the goal of social studies in our early childhood program. And for our overall program, we definitely want to make sure that we communicate those goals and stuff with our families, okay, and make sure that they can understand them. Next, we want to talk about or use a curriculum, a framework, and implement those throughout the assessments that we will be using in our program, and use a variety of assessments to help students reach the curriculum goals, not just the same thing over and over. So we're talking about differentiated instruction or differentiated assessments here within our curriculum framework. And then lastly, use of children's interests to plan experiences that include in-depth, focused, and challenging learning opportunities. So this kind of connects back to what children should know, what they can understand, what they can do, connecting some of those interests into those plans as well. So one thing we can take a look at that we could potentially do for planning, and the book talks about it a little bit as well, is use backward design for planning. Backward design is a process, is a kind of a theory, also a strategy. It's the word I'm looking for. A strategy that you can use to plan. We create learning experiences as teachers, right? We don't just necessarily follow a textbook or follow a scripted guided curriculum. but we can create things in regards to activities and lesson plans, etc. So backward design looks a little bit like this. What do we want the students to know? Okay, we go back to this first piece here, right? What do we want the students to know? What are our learning goals? And you know, is it meaningful? Okay, so we start with that. Okay, and then the next step is what kind of assessment or what is acceptable evidence for our children to be able to show to us that demonstrates their understanding or mastery of specific content. Okay, so we have what we want the students, or what we think the students should know and understand, and that it's important. Next, how are we going to assess it, or how can students show us mastery or understanding of the content? Then we go into the planning for the learning stages of that, right? So what are the goals? Stage one is the goals and appropriateness of the information. Stage two, how children might demonstrate their understanding, and gives us an opportunity to plan you know, how we're going to build up to that final assessment component. So some formative assessments throughout that process, and then, you know, the different activities, how we're going to introduce it, etc. So that's a little bit different than maybe sometimes what we think we should do in regards to, like, okay, here's the topic, here's what I'm going to do, here's the process in what I'm going to do and how I'm going to plan that out. And then here's the assessment, and then this tells me what I think the students should have learned from that. So it's kind of flips it, right? This is what the students should learn. This is the assessment that I'm going to use. This is the assessments that they can participate in, and then how am I going to build my lesson plans to reach these assessments and those final goals. So it's a little bit different, but the book does a good job of explaining the process for that, and gives a couple examples of backward design. Backward design is pretty common now in regards to how a lot of teachers in the schools plan. They just may not call it backward design anymore. It's just something that people end up doing to prepare their lesson plans and activities for the kids. Excuse me, I'll take a drink of that. Okay, so next then we take a look at activities and experiences and things that we can put together to help support the learning environment. And this is not necessarily just in social studies, but this is, you know, in any type of planning and learning that goes on. So we want to do things that promote initiative, right? The students to be able to go and do it themselves. And then curiosity, okay? A little bit of interest, you know, what is that all about? How can I learn more about it? Definitely want to be engaged and persistent, okay, or have some persistence in regards to those students, you know, not just sitting back, not you know, jumping off task, not getting bored, you know, going to something else, you know, whatever it might be. So we want to be engaged and get the students engaged and have them be persistent in working on whatever it is they're working on. Reasoning and problem solving. So a big thing that we should work on teaching our young children, even our middle school and high school kids for that fact, is reasoning and problem solving skills. Okay. If something's not working out, what can they do to adjust, to change, you know, if they're having a problem, if they're trying to figure something out and they can't. So reasoning and problem solving skills important. Flexibility is important, right? You know, the ability to wait a little bit, right? And one of the big things with young children is they're not understanding something and they need some help. What if that help is not available right away? What is something else they can do while they are waiting, for example? So an example of that for flexibility, but flexibility could be, you know, a variety of things. Getting students to take risks and then also have some responsibility for those risks. You know, risk taking doesn't mean that, you know, you get in trouble if it goes wrong, or you get in trouble if it fails. It just means that you're gonna try something. They're gonna do something that might be a little bit out of their comfort zone to try and learn or to try to grow and develop. So that's the part of that risk taking that's important. We can't always have students feeling safe in their learning. I don't mean that in a bad way, but we want them to try things that are a little bit more challenging, where they might fail, but then be able to come back and learn from that, and fix that. And of course, imagination, creativity, and invention, okay, of ways to present information, ways to solve problems, the process, in regards to finding answers, finding solutions. So we want to promote as many of these things in our classroom, as much as possible, okay? Because this creates a good, engaged classroom for social studies as well as other content subjects. Okay? One of the big pieces of this chapter, and a fair amount of people talk about this in regards to this use of Bloom's taxonomy. There are some skeptics of Bloom's taxonomy. And so you can kind of take this with a grain of salt, but there is some good evidence in regards to the use of this. So Bloom's taxonomy basically is an organization of like I don't know, a hierarchy of like objectives, ways to or levels where we can be working at in regards to the difficulty of things that we have had students do, or the level of our thinking. And so this, way back in 1956, this came out, and so it was a way for us as teachers and educators and even other people in different organizations to try to apply knowledge, try to get people to think in a variety of ways. So these are the domains or the levels in regards to our thinking, I guess, and understanding, right? So these are the original ones, and then these are the new ones, or the revised ones, which have been, I mean, this is 27 years ago. These were revised, but the domains are called creating, evaluating, analyzing, applying, understanding, and remembering. And so remembering is the first level. So if you think about this word here, remembering, that is the basis, the simplest level of thinking, right? We just try to remember something. And then as we move up, it gets more complex, right? We understand it, we apply it, we analyze, evaluate, create. Okay? And so here's an example of this, and this is on my SBC in the resources tab. And so you can see here Bloom's taxonomy. Remembering is that baseline, right? That's the simplest, lowest level in regards to Bloom's taxonomy. And then as we move up the triangle here, it gets more difficult. Okay, and so not saying that remembering is a bad component for Bloom's taxonomy or for our thinking. There's a lot of things we have to remember, right? But as we go up, there are it gets more complex, right? And so not saying that, you have to be creating things all the time in Bloom's taxonomy to be the highest level of thinking, but you should be up in this area a little bit. You should be in all of these in regards to creating activities or lessons, or having students, work in these different levels in regards to their thinking. Okay, it shouldn't just be in remembering all the time, and it shouldn't just be in creating things all the time. Okay, so we'll come back to this possibly in a minute here, but these are the domains, or those are the domains, okay? And then or the levels, because I don't want to get confused with what we're going to talk about next here. So we have 3 levels of understanding in regards to like development for children and us as adults. We have the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor domain, right? So the cognitive domain is knowledge. It's our brain, right? It's our thinking. So that is these are some components here that we look at in regards to the cognitive domain. We have the knowledge, comprehend, we apply, analyze. So it's all the stuff regarding our thinking. Okay. The affective domain is our attitude towards things, right? So how we receive something, or how we receive information, how we receive conversation from somebody, okay, responding to them, what we put of value, things that we do value or that are important to us, right? And then things that we don't value that we might, push off to the side or don't pay attention to. Organization, right? And then internalizing values, right? So our morals, our character, are those components there. Okay, so we have the cognitive, the affective, and then lastly we have the psychomotor domain, which are skills, right? And so things that we might do physically, responses that we might have physically. And so we talk about the perception of something, how we set something, a guided response mechanism, overt response, adapting, origination, etc. And so when we're talking about social studies and the development of lesson plans and activities and those types of things, we are mostly focused on the cognitive and the affective domain for our planning component of that. Okay, and so I mean, once in a while we might jump into the psychomotor domain, but like I said, this is more like skill physical development as compared to the cognitive and the affective domain. So these fall into play sometimes, obviously, like if we're looking at a PE class, even a music class or art class, you're going to have some psychomotor skills that you need to develop in order to be part of that. They're also going to have some cognitive components, affective components, etc. So, so for our sake, for social studies, we'll probably look at more of the cognitive and affective domains of learning. Now, when we look at the levels of Bloom's taxonomy, okay, and here, remembering, understanding, et cetera, it gives some good examples in the book, as well as here about when you're writing or creating an objective, for example, what types of words you would use within each of these levels, okay? And then also what are some products, what are some types of assessment that you could potentially use in these different levels. Okay, so this is a good guideline, and it's got multiple ones in the books as well. And, beyond this that you could take a look at and use. Okay, so for example, here we're talking about remembering, right? So you might, as objective, you might say, I want my students to memorize, the 9 reservations in South Dakota, okay? And you might create a map for them to do that. Or you might, create a Venn diagram talking about the different sizes of the reservations in South Dakota or North Dakota or whatever it might be. So there's multiple ways for them to do that, to memorize or label. So again, very simple component of that. Okay. So creating, okay, would be obviously the higher level, right, that we talked about. So words in regards to our objectives, such as creating, developing, formulating, hypothesizing, et cetera, right? So you might, have students create a map of the 9 reservations in South Dakota or North Dakota or whatever it might be. Okay, so things like writing a song, painting, drawing, creating a figure, this a variety of things. So as you go up the levels here for Bloom's taxonomy, it gets again a little bit more I don't want to say complicated, but you're using things differently, you're thinking differently. Okay, so take some time to look through these these terms and also some of these sample products. Like I said, in the book it's got a variety of them, kind of similar to this, but gives some a little bit more definition of the levels, verbs to use in regards to writing your objective. Okay, and so this is a sample like lesson plan. Lesson plans look much different depending upon the age level of the kids and the grade of the kids, and which organization you're working with. Head Start has different lesson plans than a kindergarten class might have in a variety of our schools, and each school might be a little bit different in what those plans look like. But here's a sample example one, right, for social studies, or this could be for a variety of content areas, right? But looking at these components here is approaches, initiative, curiosity, reasoning, invention. What are the things that you were looking at to to engage the students, during the week. And so, what standards do you have for social studies, early learning standards? What activities are you going to do? And so this is kind of similar to ours a little bit, but it uses different terms in regards to what each of the different components look like. And so this is an example, and it's not the one that you have to use, but it might be one that you would use down the road. Okay, so lots of different ways to put lesson plans together, and one is not necessarily better than the others as long as they have all the components that are important. Okay. So some strategies or some learning strategies to include in planning. So there's a variety of them here that you can take a look at, and planning, again, depending upon the grade level, it's going to look different compared to, like I said, preschoolers compared to like third graders, right? But some of the things that you can take a look at here that they talk about a little bit in the book, and not everything that is in the book is in the PowerPoint here, but you want to use a variety of these as much as possible. Okay, so if we take a look at graphic organizers and semantic maps. Graphic organizers are a way to organize information so that it's a little bit easier to remember, right? And so this can be a simple, one slide, one page. Graphic organizer can be multiple pages, slides, etc. But ways for students to remember information in a different manner by grouping things together. Okay, so models and manipulatives, of course, are a great way to learn social studies and any skill, actually. So depending upon what you're looking at, what you're talking about, the ability to create something to represent what it is you're talking about, or the subject that you're using is important. Or manipulatives to be able to move things around or feel them, understand them. The more hands-on, the better in regards to that with early childhood. You can do things like with language such as metaphors, analogies, similes, those types of things to help compare. Things that are similar, mnemonic devices, like it says here, different ways, making up songs or rhythm or claps or other things to help remember, memorize, or understand more difficult concepts. And movement, of course, is important in early childhood. Anytime you can connect learning to movement, there's a better chance that children will remember and recall that information later on. Cooperative learning, of course, working together in groups. This is a good opportunity to not just help each other, for the students to help each other learn about different topics and different material, but also helps their social skills and working together in groups. Storytelling is fun and important, and this can be done, of course, by you as the instructor, by guests coming into the room. Students could potentially be sharing stories as well. So it's a good opportunity to bring in others with expertise in different areas that you might be talking about, discussing. And of course, as students are getting old enough to write, they can do journaling, writing, talking about their experience, what they learned, what they're knowing, understanding. And it is also good practice for students in working on their language arts skills, their writing skills, etc. So a lot of these strategies can help you also connect to other, using this in your social studies time can help you connect to other content areas, right? So you talked about writing, okay, so connecting with language arts, okay, and reading components, that makes sense. So if you do like things called like thematic units, for example, where you're teaching about a topic or a concept, you tie it into every subject that you are that you have with the kids. So if you have a theme of fall, for example, and then you tie all that theme for that, maybe it's that month, maybe it's a couple weeks, whatever it might be, into your social studies, your science, your language arts, reading, any music you might have, arts, et cetera, all that builds up and connects back together, and makes it kind of seamless in regards to planning. But planning does take a lot of work when you have these thematic units to ensure that you're connecting everything back to one topic. Some more strategies and activities in regards to things that you might be looking at with social studies. Interactive bulletin boards. So that would be, something where kids can be engaged, on the bulletin boards on the wall. Besides just looking at it, what are some activities or things that you can do to be interactive or have your students interactive in that? If they're, adding things to your bulletin board, they're taking things off and they're doing some like scavenger hunts or different components with that. So interactive bulletin board is one way. You could also have an interactive whiteboard or a Promethean board if you have those in your classroom. That would require setting up some flip charts and some different components or plans on your software there to be able to make that interactive. Different exhibits that you can have in your classroom or around school. So if you think of like a museum, for example, where there's things that the kids can look at and explore, be curious about. An exhibit is something you could bring in and change every so often, maybe every couple of weeks or every month or whatever it might be. Service learning would be a good way to explore and learn about social studies. Maybe you're going out into the community and having the students work on a project, volunteer their time, during the school day, school time, to be able to go out and work in a variety of ways. Part of social studies is being a good person in your community, right? So giving back to the community, helping others in need. Storyboards, guest speakers, kind of cover these case studies, right? Where you take a look at events or things that have happened in the past and what happened, and then talk about them, maybe come up with a different way to solve that problem, a different solution, what could have been done differently, et cetera. So you kind of learn from experience. We don't have really a lot of access to archaeological digs, although there was. I'm not sure if it still is active on our archaeological dig here on Standing Rock, which is farther to the south and west on Standing Rock here down in South Dakota. Of course, group discussions are great. I talked about themes already and stuff, and you can work on the kids' interests and things. Maybe you're doing something in social studies, history, geography, whatever, and there's a lot of questions, or there's something that becomes a lot of interest in a certain topic. Take that interest and plan for it, work down the road to expand on that, to keep them interested in that. So of course, learning centers in early childhood are a great opportunity to bring about a variety of material, information, content where students can rotate through, right, and have experience and exposure to that. And of course, technology plays a huge role for us now in early childhood and K-12 education. But depending again on your organization, what you have access to, but virtual field trips, virtual anything in regards to seeing places that you might talk about, or being content, material, things that you can't get or that we can't go to around here, you should be able to reach in regards to the use of technology. And then arts in connection with social studies is also a great way to go about connecting students to different ways of learning and understanding. I don't see it. I guess it kind of did talk about like archaeological digs and maybe museum stuff, but field trips are a great way activity to use with kids in regards to understanding. I did talk about virtual field trips, but if you have some every community and every location has access to important places that are important to those communities. So local field trips, while maybe they don't seem so exciting to the kids, are an important piece of like social studies for the area and helping them to understand some history or some relevance to some of those places. So the book does continue to talk about the arts, differentiation in regards to, when we talk about differentiation, we talk about content, process, and product, right? And the changes or the things that we can differentiate as a teacher for our students. So there's a variety of those strategies talked about in the book as well. So just make sure you kind of read through them. Here it talks about some of the terms in the chapter that they talk about, that we cover. I think it covered most of those as well in our conversation here today. So I don't want to keep going on this to make it too long and rambling. So yeah, that's kind of chapter 2 in a nutshell in regards to planning for social studies in your early childhood classroom. So take a look at chapter 2 quiz, make sure you complete that. You can use your book or the PowerPoint to complete those quizzes, or that quiz, I should say. And I want to make sure that I talk to you about the Bloom's taxonomy assignment. Okay, so as we talked about, right, the Bloom's taxonomy, I want you to take a look on the internet, online, for lessons lesson plans connected to Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, looking for the types of questions or the objectives that are in those lesson plans. So my suggestion to you is to take a look, or to look up, Bloom's taxonomy lesson plans in early childhood or early childhood social studies, and you will get a large number of examples with that. Okay, so look at maybe a couple lesson plans, right? Include, excuse me, I had the hiccups. Include those lesson plans in copy and paste, download, whatever you need to do in this assignment here. Okay, so find these lesson plans and then talk to me or describe what they did in regards to the types of questions or the objectives that they have in each plan, and what level they're on in Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, if you have any questions on that, please reach out and let me know. If you're having trouble finding them, I can help you and I can share some with you that I have accessed before and previously. Okay, so remember, if you need to take a look at the taxonomy component in a different light, it's right here in our resources tab under Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so 2 assignments for this week. If you have questions or need help on them, please let me know. Thank you. Have a good week. Talk to you soon.